Hello Internet, how are you? Here I am again. I want to do a quick little video on the creation of War Skulls, the NFT collection, the evolution of the NFT collection, where it is today and where it is going in the near future. So really, truthfully, in order to understand War Skulls Reboot, which is the collection that's live, being currently traded with 3 owners, myself included, obviously. You can get them. They're on OpenSea. They're on OpenSea here. But in order to understand the creation of this contract and how we got to this collection, I wanted to jump into really the background, how it started, where it evolved to, why you see the words deprecated here, and why I'm also alluding to a rebirth after reboot. So jumping in with War Skulls, right? I initially started this idea back in October, like late September, October last year, and it was going to be a collection of 666, similar to War Skulls Reboot. But it was starting off with this concept of these, ultra rare, rare, uncommon, and common, type breeds of illustration, similar to Magic the Gathering, something like that. And I was building off this illustration here of these skulls. The artwork went fine. Everything worked out well. The collection was getting a bit unwieldy, and I obviously grew this to a much larger document. But then I narrowed it down and kind of got it to this approach, right? And what we have here is this first iteration of War Skulls version 1. So all the outputs were great, and everything worked out well, except the problem at this stage is I hadn't really gone through smart contracts and how to mint large amounts of smart contracts. So what ended up happening is I was doing these one by one. So navigating back to Brave browser and War Skulls V1, I only have 114 items in this collection because I never was able to make it to 666. What ended up happening, this was before my knowledge of smart contracts. I was doing this one by one and lazy minting them one by one, basically. And then I realized I made a few mistakes in some of the properties. So it was really difficult to go back and clean those up and make sure they were correct, because if I couldn't edit the actual properties of that particular item for whatever reason, server, etc., it was duplicates or it was just a mess, right? So I ended up, resolving to failure and cutting off what I couldn't fix and limiting to, this 114. And then really just randomly gifting people along the way, just dropping in wallets. So you might have them, and I encourage you to list them if you wish. But out of that, I was like, there has to be a better way, which landed on War Skulls Reboot, the collection that's currently trading. And you might have seen this file, this document before, but it's what I used to create the actual artwork for the generative art. If you're seeing, this warning sign and you're not familiar with Photoshop, that means the link is broken for the asset. I just have to simply update it because I pulled these off my hard drive. But these are smart objects, and they were used to create the different variations of these skulls that were output through the compiler. So with these Photoshop files, I ended up using Hashlips, his builder, and where is it? In this layers folder, I output all these different components that were used to create the actual artwork. So you can see all these different layers that are compiled, and in each of them they have their own amount, 12 in each one of variations. So there's that many different possibilities of what came out of this set here. So here you go, orange skull. And I've talked about how to create layers before, and if you're not familiar with them or you're curious, and this is an example. In my previous examples I talked about how there has to be a transparent image. That's the exact width and height. You can see here, the same thing. This is another layer, the same width and height. And when it gets all compiled to a background, it just parties on right up and fits where it's supposed to. You know what I'm saying? So with all these different layers, these different variations, they were ran through the compiler, which is a fantastic tool. You know, it's very simple and very cool, very easy to use. And their output into these completed variations, okay? So there's 666 one-of-one unique variations where every single element, from the background to the outline around the frames, to the outline around the roses, to the roses themselves, to the weaponry. There's 3 types of weaponry, and obviously the skull. So that created the 666 variations, and you can see some pretty unique stuff came out of it. A lot of really cool things. So, you know, very bright, very vibrant, very psychedelic, you know. And remind, there's only 666 of them. Here is the sword. And truthfully, I was inspired by, like, you know, you get angry and shit sometimes and you really can't do anything about it, and you have this fucking splitting headache, or like this dagger or a spear has been stabbed through your fucking head. That's kind of like what War Skulls is. You know what I mean? It's like ready for battle. And we're all here ready for battle in this NFT space with all these bull and bear markets going nuts. You know what I'm saying? So we all have to prepare, and War Skulls is a great way, and I think it's a great addition to any collector's collection looking for completely unique, you know, one-of-one generative arts in a very limited, you know, amount. They're, you know, priced to move on the primary market, you know, because I did mint them pretty much all at once. That was my intention. That's why I used a variety of different tutorials to get up into, sorry, this is not the right one, Remix IDE. Where are you, buddy? So Remix IDE is, you know, an online development environment. What do you want? Not right now. And this is where I was able to build out War Skulls, the contract. Let me see something right quick. I forget how this works. There's a little bit. I'm supposed to be able to connect my wallet somewhere. Anyways, this is where you'll go. This is what you'll use, Remix, to create a contract. Once the contract is completed, you'll see it here in OpenSea. I'm sorry, in Polygon Scan. You'll see it in OpenSea once it's in your wallet and everything like that. But you'll see, you know, everything in the verification of the actual contract itself. And you can even write, so if you wanted to mint from this contract, you could, and you can purchase from here. But this is what you'll end up coming up with in the end. I'm looking for it here. It's verified. I took the time to verify it. But basically, so I've heard in a few different chats on Twitter and all these different internet spaces about creating contracts. It's pretty easy. You know, yes, definitely there are some caveats. Security was mentioned. But one of the important things to remember is that there's a lot of rules and kind of guidelines built in, especially from OpenZeppelin. And essentially what's happening in the tutorial, I used a bunch of different ones from different sources because I wanted to mint to Polygon. I wanted to do is all of them at once. That didn't work. But I wanted to find a simple method. So it took me quite a few different videos and documents to build up the contract and get it right. But in IDE, what you would do, you know, you can import these different elements, and what you end up getting is a compiled, you know, flattened version of it, which you copy and paste. You have to have your ABI, and you have to have your contract information. And this is for people that don't know or not familiar. If you know, who cares? Get out of here. You know, if this is boring. But in that regard, if you don't know, one thing you'll need to think about too is when you're doing is that the metadata is super important, and I didn't show you that over here. And that's one of the things that come out of the build is this metadata. And in this metadata, this is where your information is coming from about the variations, what element, etc. And that's what builds the rarity. And you see here, hash lips, you know, getting credit where it's due, pal. But That's what's up, right? So you have to have that information in order to get everything to populate properly here in Open Sesame, right? And that's how you get to see all these majestical items. And look, these are a steal right now if you want to catch them before the bull market starts running again. You know, help an OG, yeah? But look, you talk about properties, look at these properties. Only 3% of this entire 666 lot have a turquoise side, okay? You know, obviously all of them are gonna have shadows. A lot of them are gonna have size shadows because only 31% of this collection is roughly size in general. You feel me? So these colors are very limited in every different aspect. So look, people and collectors, you want to know, you know, this is what goes into it. This is why it's unique. This is why you would want this in your collection, okay? There's not a bunch of them, and there's only one of these. And when that bull market runs 10, 20, 30, I don't know. I'm just throwing out numbers. In any event, the way we got here was by getting these contracts built, compiled, verified, popped up into this collection here on OpenSea. You know, it was I have to do this because I set out to do this and failed, so now I need to come all the way through, and that's how War Skull's reboot was, you know, thought of, and that's, you know, why it's out. And I'm super grateful and thankful for these owners and for this movement already. You know, it's pretty dope to see when stuff moves. So I say all that to say, you know, check it out if you're already holding it. This is why I did it. If you know about the product and the project, you know, this is why I did it. This is how I ended up there. I've got some tutorials online about creating layers and talking about that, and I also have, you know, an article here on the web, on my website, on my, about the process, a little more detailed. Let's see, here it is. It's going to be under generative art, and it's going to be under War Skull's reboot. And you'll see I got, you know, a little bit more of how this was created and how we got here. So again, thank you for those that are holding. You know, it's limited. That's a reason to hold it. I am going to bring back the completion. Definitely join. Drop your name and email. This is where I'm doing updates on what's going on. I have a Slack channel that I'm reserving for some stuff. I probably won't do Discord. Twitter is where I've been hanging out, even though I said I wasn't going to be there. But definitely join the crew. That's where I'll be doing more updates. But I am going to be bringing back War Skulls with this new collection called Rebirth, and I'm going to wait. I think the news has been retracted on the limitations of OpenSea, but the intention is to be a little more limited with this collection, do one of ones. I don't know the size of the actual collection yet. I mean, if it's limited to 50 pieces, that's what we're going to get. But I had created this as a gift for a pal from the Spooktober event, and I really loved the structure of this War Skull. So I want to go back to the original design and do something a little bit like this and get some different variation so it's not so neon, so fluorescent. So, you know, wait and see what that drop's going to end up evolving to. It will be known as War Skull's Rebirth. As soon as there's more information about what's going on with Open Sesame, you know, that'll be finished. But I'll be hanging out here on Polygon. I have some collections on SoulSea. I have some artwork on Foundation, and I have, you know, a ton you can check out. But if you're holding War Skulls, thank you. If you're interested in War Skulls, you know, here's this video on how I did it. Some of the different Photoshop files that were used in order to create it. You can see the evolution of how this, you know, artwork kind of evolved and where it was going. I mean, this got really hairy when you think about it. Once you get into PSBs, that's when files are pretty huge, 3 gigs. You know, this is where it got nutty, and this is where I realized I was over planning and kind of getting a little too aggressive, and essentially what led me to pull back a little bit on the first collection. So the first collection, War Skulls version 1, it is deprecated, it is tradable, it is going to be highly limited because it's only going to be this 114, and that's the facts, Apple Jacks. and then, you know, you can see where is it. It's not. It hasn't even finished yet. The spinning wheel of death. Yeah, you see, so I really started to get aggressive with breaking out these shapes and trying to figure out the different levels that I could create in the first variation. And it just started to bog down the machine. And it was way too overcomplicated in my mind. So, you know, when we go back to this next level, and let me see if I can't pull it up now that we're overloading everything. I probably won't be able to. But, oh, maybe I will. Gonna talk a little bit real quick. You can see here, this is where we're gonna be starting off with for the next collezione. War Skulls Rebirth. But in the meantime, get on over to OpenSea, grab yourself a War Skulls Reboot. There's 663 on the market available. You know, and they're looking pretty nifty. That's what I think. So thank you everyone for your support. I really appreciate it. Catch me on the internet, Dane Wasalko.